Welcome to the season finale of Movie of the Year, 1996, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to determine what the best movie is of any given year. As I just mentioned, if you're not paying attention, you ADD generation, this year it's 1996. We will be taking our 16 movies from the season down to the best movie, plus giving some awards along the way. With me are my stalwart companions throughout the season who battle their guests and each other every week to see who would be my best friend. It's honestly embarrassing how much they want me. First up, it's Greg.
Yes, I want you, and I currently have you, friend. And since we are out of the movie watching period, I'm best friend for. There's usually like four weeks. You know, I might get a month and a half out of this.
Oh, the late night phone calls while we twirl both the cords and our hair.
My feet just kicked up in the air behind me. Little bunny slippers on them.
Our other thirsty boy, it's Ryan.
This is going to help out my muffin budget. I will have to spend a lot less on muffins. But Mike, before we move on, I have to say, you're complaining about the ADD generation, but I think it's a lot better than the boomers, or as I call them, the SUBTRACT generation. So I think this generation's doing fine.
I am not the spelling generation. So.
HOTTOGO?
Yeah.
Now that's some spelling I can get behind.
Now your name is Chapel Roan.
I think Chapel Roan needs more credit for waiting for her takeout food and turning that into one of the best pop songs I've ever heard.
The internet's mad at her right now. I don't know why. I haven't looked into it. I refuse, so let's move on.
Yeah, because she had like 2 weeks where no one was giving her any guff, and so they're like, go back to that one.
She's not connected to 1996 in any way, except maybe she was probably born after it. So, are there any
strong
themes
connection
or trends of 96 that have stuck out to you guys?
I'm going to say I was surprised by how much I feel like we live in a world built by 1996. 1996 was asking like, is everything's going fine, right? And being pretty confident that yes, it was. But you can feel the sort of like building nationalism, the building turning away from expertise, the building like sort of like maybe all these conspiracy theorists are correct. Like we saw that across a lot of different movies. And I felt like, yeah, we could just see the things that would come to fruition now back in 96.
I also think that, this is 2 years after Pulp Fiction, but I think more importantly, it is 6 years after Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And that is the big milestone movie that I think will show a divide in our bracket. When we went from 64 to 16, I think that we picked a huge range of movies, but when we get down to like going from 16 to 1, there can only be one. We're going to see the effect of spend less, be cool, instead of spend more and just like over time get dumber and dumber. I think that there was a lot of big budget movies that we put in there because we thought that they were important or iconic, and those are the ones that didn't hold up as well as the ones who like, let's just like grab our bros and a camera and go do it.
But
I have to say,
that's also like what I'm learning through the runs of doing this movie show with you guys is so often our like revisiting and reframing of what a year is and what it meant, what movies were actually good is. I did not think we were iconoclastic before we started this podcast. And now when we're like, fuck that movie. And the world is like, what is wrong with you? How dare you say that? And you're like, oh, but have you revisited it? And so many times people are like, yeah, like a week ago. And you're like, oh. But you like movies.
I believe them, but a lot of times people are watching these movies that they love because they're sick. They're on in the background.
Yeah.
Right.
I call this hook theory. It's based on this show, this podcast, and it's so easy to say that, no, Hook is one of the better movies ever made because you've heard other people say it or your generation says it. You don't want to be a traitor to your generation. But when you actually watch it, and you're scared the whole time you're watching it because you have to go talk about it for 90 minutes with two people who judge the shit out of you, not just how you talk about movies, but also how you look and dress. You watch it in a different way.
And if you let your wife sit next to you and watch the movie with you or not.
I would say that this year has maybe the most, and I can say that because of recency bias. That's what allows me to say this. Of the movies that we were like, oh, this has to be in, right? 96 as shit. And it was like, afterwards, like, oh, this is dumb. Shit, this is dumb.
Yeah, we do sometimes like we'll watch a movie that we used to love and it will be redeemed. Like, man, this is even better than we thought. And
that's called Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze theory.
Of course, yeah. And this was just not the season for that. There were some movies that we stretched because we're like, I don't know, they had a pretty big footprint at the time and have literally no chance unless they somehow manage to line up against each other.
We had multiple guests who came on. We had multiple guests come on and just halfway through the show just be like, I still love this movie, but based on talking to you guys for an hour, I'm so fucked. Like, there's no way that I'm going to make my case.
I do like that. I want to thank all of our guests, and I'll do so by name and address later. But I do want the future guests, to be afraid of their opinions and how to share them.
Yeah.
That's that.
Or
I think
change
really
them.
Change,
Let us change your thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like come on in, and when you get the gist of what we're saying, just try to double down on that.
It's the way to make friends.
Yes. A lot of like, and to piggyback off what Greg said, regurgitate. Good point, Ryan. Regurgitate.
I think that if you say to piggyback on what Greg said, you don't have to have any more. Just end your sentence right there.
Do you just jump on my back too? To piggyback on what Greg said.
Woo! Chicken fight.
In piggybacking, if someone's on your back, are you the piggy or are they the piggy?
I think you're the piggy. If you're being ridden like a pig.
Yeah, it comes from the long tradition of pig riding.
Yeah, are pigs ridden?
Yeah, like at a fair or a rodeo, they will bring out like children to ride on.
Yeah, you're not gonna put an 8-year-old on a bull.
Exactly. But everybody wants to see the kids try to take a stab at it, and so they'll throw them on like a big angry pig.
Okay, so it's like child rodeo.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, this is good to know.
Because apparently, you want to like take your kids to the rodeo because the most embarrassing thing possible would be that as an adult, something is your first rodeo,
right?
And so you want to avoid that at all costs.
I mean, unless you just fell off a turnip truck, then that's fine.
Do you think a lot of rodeos sell merch with like a baby onesie that says "This is my first rodeo"?
That's adorable.
Mike,
I love that.
Stop saying that shit into the recording.
Yeah, man. You got to save those ideas.
It is so clear when we're talking about rodeos and merch ideas that we want to finish a season. We're not stalling in any way, shape, or form. What we are going to do is take the quickest breaks, and when we come back, give out an award. Historically, traditionally, and correctly, the first award we give out in every season of the Mooties, it's Best Supporting Actress. The Oscars stole that from us, so we will start there. Greg, tell everybody about Bonnie Hunt from Jerry Maguire.
Okay. Bonnie Hunt from Jerry Maguire is the sister that I think we all need. She's constantly telling you that the guy you're dating is just terrible and awful, and yet still kind of supporting you and helping you live your life the best way that you can. Always smoking by the window, and sometimes smoking marijuana by the window.
I thought you were going to say sometimes smoking hot, because that's around. It's always.
Okay.
If you run into her in the kitchen and it's an entire plate of lasagna, she knows just what to do. She's like, all right, bend over right here. Okay. And then I'm going to get you a new shirt. It's just, I think everybody should have like a life coach / older sister like Bonnie Hunt.
It's weird. She's definitely one of these characters where like, you don't get an idea of like what's up in her life.
No.
She's just kind of like
she gave up.
Yeah,
she hangs out with other shrewish women.
They're hurt, Mike. Okay, they've experienced a lot of pain, and maybe it's made them a little flinty, but also I think it's made them in touch with their power.
Are they called the honey buns?
They are, and anytime they walk in the room, they go bun.
But she definitely I don't want to say steals the movie because a lot of different people are going for that.
It's almost like the movie's a football game. And they are stealing that pigskin from each other.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a fumble's loose on the field and who's going to pick it up, right? Fumblerooski.
One of the things that I also noticed about the 90s, and I know it's not the intro anymore, but just a running theme, we used to be a society, blah, blah, blah. We used to make movies in this country. And 1996, this whole season taught me that in a Hollywood, big budget, not Independence Day, but like medium budget like Jerry Maguire, you would get 8 or 9 actors that you love.
Yeah.
And there was like 10, 15 years where, twice a year you would get a Bonnie Hunt supporting performance.
Yeah.
But that's just not the case anymore, unless she was a Marvel superhero, I guess.
There's so many projects out there right now, but there's like 3 or 4 actors and actresses.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to keep all these things.
And none of them are putting butts in seats. Adam Conover recently did a great episode about how it was actually the studios that killed movie stars. And they're fucking idiots, and people want movie stars again.
I saw a press release, probably fan made, because this movie has since been tabled and probably canceled, of the Tangled live action remake, and they said Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh was cast. It's like, well,
damn.
What else are you gonna do?
Oh,
right?
Those kids
are
aren't
really
busy. I do think they need roles. What are they up to? Next up, I'll jump in. I had to miss. I was remiss and had to miss the Trainspotting episode, so I did not get to talk about my lifelong love for Kelly MacDonald. From Trainspotting to, oh man, why would my brain wipe out right now?
Boardwalk Empire?
Boardwalk Empire, thank you. I was like, Nookie Thompson.
Hell
yes,
yeah,
Boardwalk
dude.
Empire. I think in a movie with a lot of big performances, for her to come in just a couple scenes and perfectly play a spunky piece of shit 17, 16-year-old who owns it, and you can see why it is just another bad decision of Renton. And I think she captured that well without getting like precocious and annoying about it.
I mean, she owns one of the scenes of the movie where she dresses down Renton in such a way that it's a speech that every incel should have to hear.
Yes. Make that your alarm clock, and that's what you wake up to every morning.
Mike, by the way, you are officially old enough to stop calling things by their real name and just be like, "Did you watch Nucky Thompson last night on the HBO?"
That's what I'm now realizing. My whole life, I'm like, how could you forget that? How dare you? And now I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah,
There's
it's
just
so
too
upsetting.
much fluff up there.
I used to say to my dad, like, how can you botch? You're trying to like make reference to these lines from these shows that we watch. How can you botch them? And now I'll watch a show and I'll do the same exact thing. I'll like try to reference it to my wife, and it will be like in the neighborhood of what the person
Right.
said, but not one single word right, not the right cadence, not the right joke.
There's gonna
There's a
be
whole
a bigger Jaws.
There's a whole generation of people out there who I think Mike called the subtract generation. That's what that word's spelled. Who have never heard the term home improvement and know for a fact it's called Tool Time.
Oh, most of them I thought knew it as. So that's Kelly MacDonald.
Kelly MacDonald, great job.
Yes, wow, great
Ryan,
actress, great role.
Let's pivot back. There's a fucking line from a show. Back to Jerry Maguire with Regina King.
Come on, gentlemen. It's nice that everybody else was nominated, but this is somebody who we talked about in the show. Hopefully you don't hear that phrase too many times tonight of, like we said in the podcast where we talked about this movie.
That's why I've gone ahead and forgotten everything we said in every podcast that we've done before this show, all time, inclusive of everything ever.
True professional.
Do you remember the movie Jerry Maguire?
I remember that. I don't remember saying anything about it into a microphone, but yes, I remember the movie.
There's such a good chance based on her performance and what we know about her now. Maybe that's unfair.
Yeah.
But hindsight is 2020. That this was a two-dimensional, flimsy-ass character.
Mm-hmm.
The wife of the supporting actor is not typically nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And I believe she wasn't at the Oscars.
And when I said I don't think Bonnie Hunt steals the movie, it's because Regina King 100% does.
Every scene she's in, we meet her before we meet Rod Tidwell.
Yes.
And she is the baller of the family, the baller of the movie, but not like that, kind of woman that, certain men like to hate because they're loud and in charge. Just so
perceptive.
Yeah, perceptive and good at her job. And it's not just to it's not a power play. It's not for respect. It's because she cares about her family.
And because she knows the right move.
Right.
Everything that she says is true in that movie. Like, she reads the situation perfectly.
And making J-Mags borderline unnecessary. Like, she should have been the agent.
Probably. What King does so well is fit in like, oh, this is a funny line going toe-to-toe with J-Mags, if we've always caught him, or Rod, or also being like the voice of wisdom and just going back and forth between those two roles without it feeling like a stutter step ever.
And being weirdly into her own husband.
Hell yeah. That's
like,
so
you don't get that much from movies, but I like when married couples in movies are too into each other.
She's so out of his league that you'd think he'd be rich, and we know he's not. Like,
Yeah.
He's not. I mean, that with something we uncovered when we watched it this time was that Rod Tidwell is not like the number one receiver, even on his own team. I mean, he's the slot receiver. He's like the number 3 guy there
Because of his attitude. Greg?
Yes,
Tell
because he's
the
not
world
6'5".
about Katrin Cartilage from Breaking the Waves. I'm sorry, Katrin Cartilage.
What? Which one is Kathleen Cartridge?
Dodo.
Yes. You hardly see this actress in like any other movies, but she does in Breaking the Waves, like what all Breaking the Waves strives to do, she does the best in it, which is just being completely alive in all of her scenes and leading a life of not so quiet desperation. Like she yells sometimes about how desperate she is, and how hard it is to live with somebody like Bess. And all of these like conflicting, very big emotions, but not coming out in a very big way. It's a extremely impressive performance from an actress who I only know from this one role ever.
My last one, and I understand if you will puffaw at this, is Lisa Marie from Mars Attacks, who you may know her as the Sexy Martian.
I do.
She has not a word of dialogue. To be so quiet in such a bombastically, annoyingly loud movie, she steals the movie. She steals the scene, and I think she is captivating and understands in a way so many of the actors in this movie don't what she is supposed to do and the tone of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's like, do you know what it is? Is everybody wants to do the punchline in this movie.
Yeah.
It's nonstop over the top, and for her to act in this way, you know, and Martin Short is one of the better people in this movie, but he's still going for it. Like, he is really
Marty goes big.
As the Martian sex alien, she's playing the straight character.
Yes.
She's the only one in the whole movie who will do that, even for a second.
But on top of that, too, I feel like this is almost a nominee for Caesar from Planet of the Apes. What's his name? Andy Serkis. Like, what she's able to do with her body in this scene is probably with the least amount of CGI in the entire movie is incredible.
The audience knows that she's just an evil alien sex bot.
Yeah.
And still, the audience is captivated.
Speaking of, we used to be a country. Every 10 years, we used to get one of these weird goblin alien gremlins that would make us question our sexuality.
Oh my God. Are we still getting these weird, sexy ladies that are like, wow, I'd really put it all on the line just to see a green boob?
I don't think so.
The lady gremlin will fucking eat your face, dude. Like, is it worth it? Yes. Answer yes.
Were you guys offended at the porn version of Green Boob? Like, do you think that hit all the same themes and stuff?
Better. That's what I was offended by. How much better they did it.
Yeah, it didn't solve racism, but it solved porno racism, and that's a different but still big problem.
That's huge.
Or it was.
Ryan,
Thanks, Green Boob.
Yeah.
Could you please reveal who wins?
Oh, and your winner is
Drum roll.
Regina King from Jerry Maguire.
Hey, some say King is a queen.
Some do.
We are going to take the quickest of breaks, and when we come back, battle some movies.
Here we go.
All right.
You guys playing a lot of Switch 1 to get ready for Switch 2? Same here.
Dude, I listened to a podcast today about Switch 2, and their opinion was that there is no reason to buy it. I don't want to just have their opinion, but I don't get it. Like, it seems like the big thing is talking to people while you're playing.
Ew, no, thank you.
I hate that.
Yeah. Nintendo clearly thinks there's going to be another pandemic. It is 100% a system design.
That's when we got one.
The Switch 1 was about going to parties and playing on your Switch with everybody else. The Switch 2, just you can tell by the marketing, is about staying in your house with a camera on you, and you're at the parties online.
Like when we used to play You Don't Know Jack at the beginning of the pandemic.
Exactly, yeah. But that's what kids do. They play like Fortnite and Roblox and everything, and it's like a location. They're hanging out, and then they play games from that central location, and that's what Nintendo is trying to recreate.
The guy in the podcast had an incredible analogy, which is Switch 2 is Phantom Menace. Whereas people our age will be like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But then if it's your first system, they'll be like, no, Switch 2 is better than anything that has ever come out.
My youngest nephew plays online games all the time, and he's constantly on chat with his friends. And all my nephews are like constantly chatting with their friends, not really on iPhone so much as like Discord and video game stuff. So I think it's a move in that direction. It's got better graphics. That's why I'm going to get it.
Clapping in 3, 2, 1. Our first battle.
Oh God, damn it, son of a bitch! Here we go.
Okay.
I didn't sign up
Pass.
for this. I didn't sign up for this.
Let's go to the next one.
I'll just determine who moves on.
Let's talk about
no.
Regina King some more.
Man, we have few talents like Regina King, Ryan.
Your first seed is
I?
Fargo, and it's going against your 17th seed. The reason for the season, she just won an award, Jerry Maguire. So, Taste Buds, which movie better defines what we think of as a quintessential 90s cinema experience? The indie quirkfest crime comedy of Fargo, or the emotionally earnest, big-hearted, weird sexual energy rom-dram of Jerry Maguire?
I mean, right off the bat, like, couldn't one of these been Mars Attacks? Like,
I have to say, to answer the strictly on the parameters of that question and making
that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, I have to say, based on that, I think Jerry Maguire is better because I think people were digging the vibe of Fargo, but Jerry Maguire had this like sort of cultural seepage. Like everybody was doing the show me the money. That was like, we were mostly excited about that. Fargo had more like, I don't want to say indie cred, but I feel like people enjoyed Fargo, but not in that like culturally dominant. We're going to reference it on Saturday Night Live. You know, everybody has to have their version of the impression. That's
okay, then. You don't have that? You don't have that locked and loaded?
Yeah, Fargo. I guess Fargo did have the impression, but I feel like the Jerry Maguire thing, the big show me the monies, that was the cultural moment.
I think that, like, as far as watching the movies, being in the movie while it's playing in front of you, goddamn, what a good question. And it's such a tie because these are the two most 96 movies of all time. And so influential. Like, I could see for maybe 5 years after this, the executives being like, "Who is this script, Fargo or Jerry Maguire?"
Yeah.
Because that is all we want, and both led to good and bad things. I think Jerry Maguire eventually got us to like pay it forward, but
the good
Fargo's sort of, you can be indie and you can have guns, but that doesn't mean you have to be QT. I think it was such a huge deal going forward, and
you can be a smart
not everyone
cutie.
Listened, right?
I do have to say there's a certain way in which Fargo feels, to me, less 96 and more Coen Brothers, or more now like the Fargo Industrial Complex. Like, there have been so many Fargos, and they're all part of what makes the show Fargo so interesting is every show is tied very deeply into the movie because the characters in it are like reflections of characters from the movie, or like the conflicts are reflections of the conflicts from the movie Fargo. But I do feel like in a way that removes the 96-ness of it. And also, if you even take it outside the realm of Fargo, it's got a Coen Brothers feel to it, and that feels a little timeless to me. Versus, I watch Jerry Maguire and I'm thinking of 1996 constantly. Like, I'm very tied into the 96 like version of race, the 96 version of sports, the 96 version of like costume and set design. I mean, like the
music, editing, like the montages,
dating,
like dating.
Renee Zellweger.
Yeah, it's so 96. I get what you're saying. I think that like Fargo is very tied to me.
Yes,
as a 96 movie because of where I was in 96. But Jerry Maguire is 1996.
Fargo in 96 was like the blast of fresh air that exists in Fargo. Like, it was so nice to see a movie like this. It had such a different feeling. And so, yeah, it's going to like impress upon us. But in the wider culture, Jerry Maguire was like this unstoppable force. And I have to say, a very well-made movie. I thought that this was one of the ones that, I don't know if I appreciate it more than I used to, but it's not one to me that felt like it took a huge step back.
No, I thought it was like in the beginning of the season. I would have put my money on Jerry Maguire, the one we'd
right.
all be like, oh, and instead we're like, ah.
I mean, what is wrong with it? Like, whether it's because of dated cringe stuff or just sort of like flaws in the script or characterization, are also still so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes.
That it was a blast to talk about.
To me, the cringiest stuff was like, oh, we did not know. Well, some people knew about concussions, but like in the broad public did not.
Right.
And it was still like the kind of like, oh, he got his bell rung sort of like perspective on everything. Like, oh, he's walking a little silly. That's that, oh yeah, he's really feeling that. Having the mindset of what concussions do to people now and then watching the movie, that was one thing that like felt uncomfortable through a lot of it.
It brings out who they really are. That's what I've always said.
But not so much the race stuff, except for a few lines here and there where I'm like, is this for these people to be saying? Is this for Cameron Crowe to be saying in this moment?
It felt like most of the time Crowe was like, well, I shouldn't comment on this. But then he was like, well, I got to.
Fargo, though, wow. If you had asked me before the season, like you wake me up in the middle of the night and say what's going to win 96, I think Fargo is what I would have said. And do you think that the money would be on Fargo before the?
Oh yeah, I think it was pretty easy money. I think that because we use,
and remember, you can use our very special bet app to bet on all of our results. Have a problem with gambling? Use the bet app.
It's called Movie of the Crypto, and it's available in all homes. If you have a problem gambling, please dial 1-800-EAT-SHIT. Fargo is the number one seed. We rely heavily on Letterboxd when we make our seedings, almost completely. And
when we're just looking for a movie to watch, we might jump on Letterboxd and see what the ratings are. And
over time, Letterboxd has been basically completely taken over by film bros, So all
Dweebs.
of the fight books and the Jokers have all risen to the top like they do in every other website. But the Coen brothers, I think, is that one, sort of example of where the most hardcore film bros and people who, watch movies other than Fight Club and Joker can agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
And so this being the number one seed isn't that shocking to me.
Those two groups of people are just staring across the divide, holding their necks, saying, "Are we square?" And yes,
it's so weird. But
we are.
If you watched,
whoa, daddy!
If you watched, whoa, daddy! If you watched Fargo, you wouldn't think, man, I bet this movie appeals to more people than just about any other movie in this bracket. But the truth is, for as awful and violent and terrible, and the fact that it's just like the absolute worst of humanity, if you need a crowd pleaser of a movie, I don't think you could do better than Fargo. I've never met somebody who's like, oh, Fargo, that's a little bit too much.
I just think it's endlessly fascinating. Every choice. And I like, as much as I love Jerry Maguire's missteps and find them as fascinating as how Jerry Maguire works, Fargo just doesn't.
And now we vote.
Oh my
Ryan?
God.
I will vote for Fargo.
Greg.
Sorry, is that hacky?
No, I mean, I think it didn't become pretty clear over the course of the conversation how everybody felt about it. It felt like a big matchup early on, and so it didn't feel like Slam Me D territory. But I think when you like start laying it all out, Fargo is the far superior movie across most of the axes that we worry about.
That is 2 for Fargo, so Fargo moves on. We're going to take the quickest breaks, and when we come back, another battle. Battle 2, gents. Strap in. It's your 8th seed, Haine, versus your 24th seed, the Cable Guy. 1 is a blistering street-level portrait of systemic injustice that helped redefine modern French cinema. The other is what happens when a bunch of rising Hollywood weirdos ask, can we make the world hate 2 of our most charismatic comedic actors? So, taste buds, which film better holds up a mirror to the seedy underbelly of humanity? The one with police brutality and urban unrest, or the one with a lisping Jim Carrey in medieval times?
So Haine didn't know that we were gonna do this year for this season in 2025. But goddamn, didn't they? Didn't it sort of seem like that? When we were talking about big budget movies that we all claim to love, like Space Jams of the world, the Cable Guy was also what I was talking about.
Oh.
It wasn't just Mars Attacks. There's many movies to pile shit on.
Oh, yeah. Cable Guy was like, we were like, going to give this a second viewing.
Yeah.
and see.
Oh, this is also a lost episode. So
Oh yeah, the lost episode.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. So we talked about how dark it was, how uncomfortable it was, and how like obsessed with TV it was, and how weirdly dated that felt now. Like it is 100% like this is the monster that TV has created. And it's like, oh honey, we're onto the monsters the internet has created, and they're so much fucking worse, you have no idea.
But what's fun is it was right. And the world just went, yeah, let's do that instead of heeding the warning.
Yeah, it's like how people watch cloning movies or movies about AI, and they're like, "Fuck yes, let's do this." I don't like. We didn't trash this movie, and there's a ton to like.
Yes.
It's just that I believe that its stock has risen to a point that may be too high.
It does also give you a lot to think about. There's things in it that are I've never seen in any other movie, like what is the moral implication of hiring a sex worker to sleep with your friend and then not telling your friend that you've hired the sex worker to do that? And man, that basically cooked my noodle thinking about that. Because
Greg, we keep telling you it's not cool.
I know.
Stop doing it.
You gotta
But,
stop.
like,
We're both
the more I
married
thought
men.
about it, I knew it was not cool, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wait, this is like deeply, deeply uncool. Like,
I thought you were gonna say it's a super cool.
Yeah, wait, this rules.
if you want to like pay for someone else's whatever, but you have to tell them. It's the part where he didn't know, and that is like the more you think about it, the more disturbing that gets.
Yeah, but Chip, played by Jim Carrey, seemed to think he very casually said, "Yeah, but you get next time." He was
thinking that just understood.
Yeah, how could you think that a woman like that would hook up with you?
And it's very true. If you watch that party, it's like the party of all the rejects in the building, and then there's these two extremely hot women, and one of them is just all over him. But
rejects of the building, including 1996 superstar Amber.
That's how dumb guys are, though.
Yeah,
like that's not
like
that's we're particularly stupid in that way. I think we 100% watched this movie to hear Janine Garofalo say there were no utensils in medieval times, hence there are no utensils at medieval times. I think that
would you like a refill on your Pepsi?
Yeah.
Really
and
sealing the deal.
We got our money's worth because we watched that scene. All of us did.
The good thing about the finale is that we have no clue. We have no recollection of what the cable guy beat in order to get into the Sweet 16.
Right.
So it's hard to be mad. I'm glad that we watched it. I'm glad that we talked about it. I'm sad that nobody ever gets to hear it.
Yeah.
But it was, it is also very, very 1996 in its casting. In its, we talked about Jim Carrey's paycheck, which was such a big deal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an important part of the year. I just don't think it's going to beat Haine.
He demanded to be paid in novelty size checks. And that was actually really hard to track one of those down.
And cut down a lot on his take home. Because they're like, okay, but you do have to, what we pay for that check does come out of your paycheck.
He says he used to tell the story about how at his dad's funeral, who never got to see him be like super famous, he took his $20 million check and put it in his pocket before he got buried, put it in the casket. And now thinking about it as a novelty size check, that's a way different story.
Dad's pitching a tent.
Whereas Haine, if Haine doesn't win 96 movie of the year, it's going to be because like none of us were watching French. Well, maybe you were, Ryan, but I was not watching French cinema.
Maybe this fucking dork was.
If I saw the name of this movie, I probably would have thought it was Spanish cinema anyway.
Yeah.
But like, it's not going to lose. It's not going to lose because it is in any way a deficient movie.
Or up against the cable guy.
Or up against the cable guy, yeah. Haine is an absolute treat. Although treat, I guess, is a weird way to put it because it is such like a kind of violent and
you made Mike choke.
Unsettling movie.
I was just thinking of like eating a Twix that really makes you think of everything that's wrong with humanity.
Genocide. But I don't know. There is that sort of like, even really heavy movies have this kind of joy to them, and it is shot with a lot of joy, and there's certainly moments of joy. There's beautiful like dancing and musical performances.
Yeah, the
in
DJ
it,
interlude.
Or the breakdancing interlude down in the subway. And I mean, these guys are like,
DJ interlude is pretty good for you, Mike. I like that name.
DJ interlude. I just come in with the real DJ is taking a bathroom break.
But all that stuff is kind of like, that's like a little island in a sea of like civil unrest and racialized violence. And so I guess treat is not a great word for it, but
I definitely understand it.
Like why you'd say,
Yeah,
like what about it is?
And I mean, it's such a dark movie that there are like you need those moments.
Yeah.
Here and there.
You jump from island to island.
And the characters are like fully realized, and it's
Yes.
basically a hangout movie. I mean, they're hanging out with a gun and like being like, "Are we going to shoot a cop or not?"
Sumptuous
But they are
performances.
hanging out, and I'm a big fan of that.
Bunch of friends talking shit, black and white. It's like Kevin Smith, right? If Kevin Smith was French. There's so much talk right now about basically the end of this form of art. Movie theaters are going under. Nobody's, the only movies that are getting made have to be huge IP. And
I'm hearing that kids literally can't watch movies. Like
Yeah.
you can't, like a kid cannot sit all the way through a movie, and I can't. I mean, I love movies, and I can't always sit all the way through them.
But watching the Haine for this season gave me so much hope because it doesn't matter what happens to movie theaters or
Right.
Hollywood studios. There will always be people to make Haine. And the flip side of that is that it doesn't matter how much social justice or how much society changes. There will always be the things happening that created Haine to make more Haines. Like if
Thank
this
God.
is the if this is the kind of movie that we get, when it's either Minecraft Part 7 or another Haine, I still think we're okay because there are still artists that like did this in 96 because there was, that was happening in 1955 and it's still going to happen in 2030. And it gives me a little bit of hope. Thanks, police brutality, I guess.
Keep on giving.
When people say that like movies are bad or there aren't good movies anymore, what they mean is that those movies don't make money anymore and they're maybe not popular anymore. But this show and especially our end of the year things has shown me that like there's still really good movies out there. Maybe they're just a little bit harder to find than they used to be, and nobody supports them in quite the way that they did before. But there's a lot out there to like.
Although this is the year that we decided to next year do a reality bracket. So
Hey, we are creatures of the world and have to go where the sales are taking us.
Man, but remember when Mike explained the role that reality TV has in his life? I thought it was so perfect, which is
look,
you come home and you basically want to talk to your wife, but like also like you're still decompressing from the day. You put on reality TV. It creates like this kind of buffer. You're looking at hot people, but then you're also like, look at how absurd they're being. And now you're talking to each other. And reality TV, you can miss 90% of what's going on and it doesn't matter. If you look away from prestige TV, oh, did you miss an important cutaway shot?
Reality TV is the tool time of the modern era. Voting time. You both vote for Haine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I was gonna say
Cable
sorry,
guy.
Cable Guy, but I'm not. I'm not sorry, Cable Guy. How dare you be here? And congratulations for getting this far. We're gonna take the quick breaks. When we come back, another reward. My tasty buds. Let's talk about your best supporting actor.
Do you want the term defined?
Let's hear it for the boys.
I don't want the term defined. I want the term sung like Greg did. I wish I was giving points.
Best supporting actor.
Not
Now
the
you
lead, but
both get
still a boy.
Okay, I said I didn't want it defined. Points are docked. Ryan, let's talk about one William H.M. Macium from Fargo.
Shit, is this the Oscar winner? Can't be, right? No, it was Cuba Gooding Jr. Sorry, maybe we'll talk about him later. William H. Macy probably should have been the Oscar winner. I cannot believe.
I think if you said to a lot of people, William H. Macy won the Oscar for that, right? I think those people would just go, yep, that sounds right.
And I'm only saying that because I have to speak about him right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that about everybody I speak about. But what a fucking piece of shit that we can all relate to. We've all been in tough spots financially or with our families or both. And yet this person is what Coen brothers like movies. Right, so even like A Simple Plan, was that the Billy Bob Thornton one? These people propel these movies into hell.
Yeah,
They keep making decision after decision that is thoughtless and selfish. And this guy,
obviously stupid, like on face value, stupid.
If you walk
Confident
outside
ineptitude.
yeah, which is like that's describing Will Ferrell in a comedy, any Will Ferrell character, but also you can see how dangerous that Michael Scott would actually be in real life. If you go outside your house right now and you look at like probably half your neighbors have one of these people living inside of that house that are just like in a heartbeat can absolutely destroy a family through stupidity and selfishness. And the fact that like it all leads to this hotel room arrest of him squealing like somebody said, "Give me a piggyback ride."
Seriously.
What a performance.
Proving that toxic masculinity need not only come from people who are like alpha males.
Yeah, it's not just
but that it
muscles.
could come from the squirreliest little nothing men could still also be just as bad as the bad guys, you know.
Because he and Macy fills it so well. He Jerry thinks he deserves it all, but also is such a cuck that he can't actually take it all. So he will be like, he's very Milton from Office Space vibes.
Right.
Like, yeah, I believe I should have this. Until somebody else
also-
is like, no. And he's just,
But he's also like Tyler Durden's speech. He's also Woodstock 99. He's all
Yeah.
of these like, no, like I'm the man of the house and I deserve certain things, even though I'm a noodle. I'm a goddamn noodle, Mike.
gosh darn noodle. Scotty, his son, is the king of the house.
Seriously.
Yeah.
He plays hockey.
He's emotionally mature. He's the one who's just like, Dad, Mom's taken. Should we like hang out and take care of each other and have dinner? And he's like, no.
No, Scotty, I'm gonna go take a nap.
I got to go to a bar with Steve Buscemi.
All right, Greg. Next up is Tony J from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, who was Frollo.
Okay, I won't say that The Hunchback of Notre Dame was like a good movie, but it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And Tony J is maybe 90% of the reason why. His song, I hope we get to talk about later, but like fire, hellfire,
Wow,
is
Greg is
burning in my heart.
You know,
That
Greg
was-
sings that doing laundry and dishes, walking around the house. That was on point.
And he's just like, his voice is so resonant in this. It almost sounds like it's like made to fill up a cathedral like Notre Dame. And another movie that reminds us, set in Paris, that, you know, social unrest is like just a couple actions away, you know, a couple upset crowds away.
Yeah, or like you could be poor in the wrong way where you're in jail for your life.
Yeah.
And that's such a theme throughout all of these movies. I also think that after, I think, a bit of a misstep with Pocahontas, they didn't say we need a new Simba, they said we need a new Scar
Yeah.
in this movie.
Hell
Like, this
yeah.
is how we're gonna do it. It's that voice and that, like, you get to the point of power where you just keep barking orders
Yes.
and you're insane, but people are like, I guess we gotta.
And his whole thing, like, my horniness is everybody else's problem.
Yes,
Like,
dude.
just like, can you just let yourself indulge in your horniness without it like having to be like some
Nope.
like society altering
Hey,
thing?
all villains, real or fiction, go rub one out.
Dude,
Wait-
yeah. And if you still feel villainous afterwards, maybe you could do something.
If Frollo had a son in the modern era, they would both have that app on their phone that checks in how often they're jerking off to porn to keep each other accountable.
It's just the problem is his name, right? It's so ridiculous. And every time you say it, Mike, I think isolate yourself and just go solo.
He should. The world would be better. The world of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Next up, from Paris to Paris, it's Hubert Koundé from La Haine, who is, it's like a three-hander, but Hubert is kind of the calm. And he's the calming force, the central focus of the movie, which is why
He could
it's so
have been
terrifying.
5 years old. Sorry.
Oh, I would say it's so terrifying by the end when he's just like, no, you know what? Crazy aggressive pop-up. You're right. Let's get violent. You're like, no. You were the smart one.
He could have been 5 years younger than the other two, and the whole movie spends feeling like he's 5 years older.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's the heart and soul of the movie.
Yeah.
He's a boxing talent. He owns his own building that his own gym is in.
He did the one thing you can't do, which is try to get out, like pull yourself up. you know?
Yeah. And so like when the movie ends the way it does, it's so tragic, and the actor just like, I don't know, La Haine, it could be any of these actors really. La Haine, like,
Yeah.
you forget that you're watching characters act. I mean, it is just like, you don't see an actor portraying any role in this movie. You just see the people.
And it's because it's one of those movies where it's made by friends who hung out, wrote the characters for themselves kind of thing, and like lived in it and built that chemistry, so it feels so real.
Couldn't even think of character names, which is fine, but it's one of those. Hubert is one of those, like, or Hubert is one of those, like, police. You're supposed to be protecting people, but you're just out there creating
Yes.
your enemies.
Yeah.
Next up, showing I think where one of our affections lie, Ryan, tell us about Steve Buscemi in Fargo.
In Fargo. I mean, like, this is the, I think, premier Nucky Thompson performance. This is sort of what it all leads to and what it all stems from, of just this guy who also has, I think that, like, in a lot of ways, he's the mirror image or the negative image of William H. Macy, in that he thinks that he deserves a lot. He thinks he's way smarter than he is.
Yeah.
He cuts the corners that he feels like he needs to or doesn't need to go around or figure out the right way.
He thinks he's in control of situations where it's like, dude, why would you even assume you're in control of this situation?
And it's because I have a gun and I can get loud, or I can just alpha you out. I can
complain
crazy
a lot.
you. And he can't, because one, there's these people that he's dealing with, not just William H. Macy, but William H. Macy's father-in-law. But then on his side is his partner, which, like, you're not going to out crazy or out strong that guy. So he's just doomed in every way.
Because what he thinks, Peter Stormare, is how you say that guy's name?
Yeah.
He's just like, he's quiet, so he's weak. Like, he definitely is like, bluster is what strength is. And only one of you gets wood chippered.
I know only one of them can be or maybe Peter Stormare is nominated, but that old cartoon of the tiny dog jumping around and talking a lot over the big dog that walks around, like, that's just what we get, and it's the perfect film performance of that.
Greg, Hank Azaria won us all over in the Birdcage.
Agador Spartacus in the Birdcage. Yeah, we all got together and we decided, along with our guest Andrea, that it's okay to like Hank Azaria in this movie because it's so hard not to. Again, he looks amazing, which I feel like I always go back to that, but I was just so surprised by how hot he was in this movie, and everything he's saying is an absolute, like, walk-off home run, hilarious comment in a movie with, like, so much heart and so much comedy. I think the top three things I remember are lines that he says, I
wonder if that's a lesson, though, for comedies, is that you can have a ton of heartfelt, non-funny scenes. You can have three-dimensional characters as long as you shovel off a lot of that comedic responsibility to this guy in the corner who will make you laugh no matter what he does.
Yeah, basically. And the movie turns the reins over to Hank Azaria several times, and whether or not it's going to work as in total enterprise is whether he can carry the 3 or 4 scenes that he has, like, the tail end of. And he absolutely does. And, we can talk about whether or not, like, it's cool for essentially a white guy to play someone with that much Guatemalan-ness, I believe he says.
It's cool.
But it's very humorous. And in the 90s, people would have been shocked to hear that was even a consideration.
Right.
No. He's just doing a funny character.
Do you think if by watching Apu we could see, like, Hank Azaria's six-pack, then we would have liked it better? It would have been more
maybe. I think when this movie came out, if people said there was anything wrong with Apu, I would have been absolutely shocked, and I wouldn't have quite understood what they were talking about.
What are you talking about?
Well, because, a white guy does that character? Yeah, and?
Good voice actor. I don't understand what you're saying. Our final supporting actor nominee is Cuba Gooding Jr. from Jerry Maguire, the counterpart to Regina King. And who knows if that's going to do anything. But the level of nuance for, again, like, it could be just a joke character, but, like, how he fits his chip on the shoulder, ego, like, goof, but then he also has, like, very sage wisdom for Jerry, and, like, I think makes the character Jerry more likable because they are best friends, and then the way they fight and help each other, and I think is, like, not that there's not toxic masculinity within Rod, but that there's so much, like, realness and vulnerability within him as well, and Cuba does.
He's basically Jerry Maguire's dad. He turns Jerry Maguire into a man. He takes him from a boy into a man.
You can point to scenes of, like, him jumping around and acting cocky, and you think that's him until you see it's a persona when you see him standing there lonely at the big convention.
Yeah.
Because Jerry Maguire won't hang out with him anymore. Or you see his real, actual person when they're watching that wedding video, and he's seeing Jerry Maguire look all awkward and looks over at him and, like, I'm actually a human being. I'm not being Rod, the wide receiver, or I'm not being Rod, the, entertainer. Like, there's a lot of dynamic to this character. We only remember the loud stuff.
Right. Ryan.
Yes.
The envelope, please. And why don't you read it while you're down there?
Since you got the envelope and everything.
Yeah. Can you give them to us one more time, Mike?
It's Cuba Gooding Jr. Hank Azaria, Steve Buscemi, Hubert Koundé, Tony Jay, and William H. Macy.
Your winner is William H. Macy from Fargo.
It just makes sense. All these guys are great, but come on.
Yeah.
We're going.
Tony Jay, though, congratulations to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Shout out to Hunchback.
There's certain movies where isn't it nice to just be nominated because we're going to take the quickest breaks, and when we come back, another battle. Taste buds, the third battle is our fourth seed, Mission Impossible, versus our 45th seed.
Wow.
The People versus Larry Flynt.
Ooh.
One of these, who knows which, launched $1 billion franchise, made Tom Cruise into the madman messiah of modern action, and gave Brian De Palma a shot at turning a TV relic into a slick, paranoid thriller. The other tried to humanize a man whose legacy includes both defending the First Amendment and once releasing an issue of Hustler titled Asshole of the Month. And it doesn't mean a dude. Which made a bigger gamble in 96? Cruise rebooting a dusty spy show with Dutch angles and exploding gum, or Milos Forman asking us to empathize with America's horniest provocateur.
I mean, I think the biggest gamble has to go to Milos.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise. This was the time where, every TV show from the 60s was getting remade into a movie. I don't know if there was anything or Fugitive, I guess, but as high profile as this with a big star and a big budget. But to put Larry Flynt in your title of your movie as your main character, that feels like a gamble.
Yeah. And to never shy away from what an awful person he is, what an awful magazine he runs, all the different weird things that happen, the way he contributed to the downfall of his own wife.
But as a movie, none of that is beautiful, but the movie is beautiful because every other fucking biopic is just a hagiography. And to be like, no, this person, the reason we're making a movie is because they're a nuanced, complex fuck up. Let's dig into that. That's what makes a movie worth watching.
Somebody so important in that movie that was not nominated for Best Supporting Actor, because Tony Jay, I guess, needs a nomination, is Edward Norton, who he's kind of a dork and always in a suit, but he's so necessary in that movie because he's always the person that's like, you're a fucking idiot. It's not just that you're a dirtbag and you hurt people. Like, you are being a proud moron.
Are you a character from Fargo?
And he just fits in with William H. Macy and so many of the people that we're talking about of like, no, I have a thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it no matter what damage I do as well. And
the central idea of the movie being like that the First Amendment has to protect the worst of us so that it can protect the rest of us. And being like, yeah, this guy's the worst. This is the one.
We found that example.
Except for maybe Jerry Falwell. Definitely Jerry Falwell comes off also seeming like a pretty terrible person in this movie.
Make a sequel, The People versus Jerry Falwell.
Do we need Larry Flynt, Dead Reckoning?
Yes. He rips off his mask. It's not Woody Harrelson anymore.
Mission Impossible, it feels like less of a swing, but I guess that's because we know that it's popular, that it worked.
I mean, the swing is Brian De Palma.
Yes.
Eventually.
And Kitteridge.
Eventually it went to Christopher McQuarrie, who was like, I'm going to make good movies, straight up, but I'm not going to say anything or do that much. I'm just going to focus on the action of it, and I want this movie to make as much money as possible. Whereas hiring Brian De Palma was a crazy idea at the time.
If I name other Mission Impossible movies, do you have any idea what happens in them? And if I started to tell you what happens in them, would you remember what happens in them? Because I feel like they're always like the organization is turned on them
every time. No matter what.
And then
guys, maybe stop believing the organization. Maybe go freelance.
Imagine at your job every Monday you got an email that said, "We've turned against you."
But
what do you do? I
have to say, one thing that was perfect timing about this was we watched this movie and Kitteridge stole the show. I mean, not the movie. We spent so much of the show talking about Kitteridge after this. And then he's not in any of the other movies, but they reprised him just in time for me to recognize who he was in the most recent one by bringing him back. And that felt good to find that. I was really impressed with Mission Impossible. This is one of the ones that I thought would take a step back. And then instead, when I was a kid, I thought this movie was too dumb for me as a kid, but is not now too dumb for me as an adult. Because what I don't think I understood as a kid was that you sometimes intentionally make something stupid as like a campy, fun thing. And I enjoyed Mission Impossible way more watching it as an adult because I didn't think it was ever meant to be anything other than just completely over the top. Honestly, kind of almost like humorously over the top stunts and ideas. And so I just enjoyed my popcorn this time and loved every second of Mission Impossible.
There's almost this feeling, which I don't hate. Like, I think it's cool. In the same way with Breaking the Waves, where Lars von Trier was like, I made the stupidest romantic movie I could think of, and everybody loved it. And in this one, Brian De Palma was like, oh, you fuckers want cool action? All right, here you go. Here's cool action. We were like, whoa, cool action.
I honestly a helicopter chained to a train, idiots.
Dude, there's an argument to be made that a helicopter chained to a train like that is like making fun of the audience.
Yes.
Like, if you are not walking out of the theater based on how stupid this is, then you're stupid. And I would just further submit, yeah, I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I enjoy stupid shit like this now.
I also think that with no evidence, think it was sort of like the starting point of do whatever you want in the first 10 minutes, or like after your initial action scene, your cold open, do whatever you want in the first 10 minutes as far as exposition goes. We're not paying attention.
Yeah.
We're not going to remember. Just show us cool stuff after that. And I feel like from then on out, any spy or any like agency movie or TV show was like, just spend as long as you want on the exposition. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Much like many other movies, they're the first 10 minutes that nobody cares or understands or pays any attention to actually turns out to be very important to what's going on. And you only realize that when you watch it again. You're like, oh, wait a minute. That's why they were doing all that stuff.
Emilio Estevez?
Those are masks. That's why they can pull them off like that. Okay, no, I get it now.
You just thought they were taking their face off?
I thought they were taking their face off and they had a different face underneath that. But no, they're masks.
Also, we got to shout out real quick. And he might go over too, but Tom Cruise, man, 1996. Like, is there anybody more 96 than that guy who gave us both types of movies, spy thriller and sports agent drama comedy?
The two
what
big
else
genres.
do you need from an actor?
And always while running.
And I do think, like, when people, they think it's so easy to shit on him. Just these movies. He's an actor.
Because he's short, that's why.
Yeah.
He fits right under your bum.
He pooped right on his little head. I think he definitely knew he got lazier, as so many of our greats did in the 2000s, because they're like, oh, I can just do this one thing. But I think in this era, he is acting, and Ethan Hunt and Jerry Maguire are nowhere near being the same guy.
Dude, I mean, in this year he worked with Cameron Crowe and Brian De Palma, which maybe aren't in the top 100 directors of all time, but I don't know. They've got their own style. I think 3-4 years from now, he'll work with Stanley Kubrick, and it will break him so hard that he will never work with another.
I'll only work with McQuarrie.
I don't think he understood when he was working on Eyes Wide Shut, and when, like, I don't think he understood the boundaries anymore. He got very confused.
All right, we got to vote. Greg,
You trying to remember the movies?
Mission Impossible versus Larry Flynt.
Mission Impossible. Okay, I really enjoyed Larry Flynt, but bigness within the year is one of the things, and the bigness of this, like bigness within the year and timelessness, and it kind of got both of those because now every couple of years has their Mission Impossible, but none of them feels quite like the first one does. I'm gonna say Mission Impossible.
Right, guy.
I always thought Larry Flynt was slept on. I loved it so much back then. I thought that it was like equal to Amadeus as far as Foreman biopics. And so I was nervous coming into this year about Larry Flynt, and I loved it even more. I think it's so ballsy and crazy and funny in so many different ways. I think it's got to be Larry Flynt. Sorry, Mike.
Guys. I finally have to do something. I hate
Choosing.
That. I agree. I knew nothing except the trailers of Larry Flynt, and phenomenal film. I gotta go Mission Impossible on
what
this.
The
I think
fuck?
It owns it.
He rope-a-dope me.
I'm the rope-a-dope king.
You did a zigzag.
Cruise is 96. Mission Impossible moves on. You know what? Let's just dive right into our next battle. Battle 4, it's your 5th seed, Independence Day, versus your 44th seed. We love those mid-40s, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I wonder
that
why.
thing you do.
Oh, okay.
One of these movies blew up the White House, turned Will Smith into a megastar, and made Jeff Goldblum say, must go faster again. And the other movie made us believe a one-hit wonder from a non-rock and roll, non-sex and drugs band could save our souls. Which film better represents the American dream? The one where we punch aliens in the face, or the one where a garage band becomes famous for a single bop and then wins?
I mean, like, the world has given That Thing You Do too much shit for being too surface level. And I think that we did it too on our episode. We were like, I mean, it is, but it's so likable. And Independence Day is so dumb and bad so often that I don't know how to not say That Thing You Do to your question.
I was one of the biggest surprises to me is how, as I loved both of these movies at the era, like these defined 96 Mike. I thought Independence Day was going to be like what Mission Impossible was. Like, when it's dumb on purpose. It's so good. No, I think there's so many dumb things that it has no idea it's being dumb. Sometimes I think it does, but I think that Roland does not have his hand fully on the control lever. That's a phrase, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it couldn't decide to just be a parody. That it couldn't decide to be Mars Attacks, but it had the potential to be a much better Mars Attacks. And I definitely did love all the blowing stuff up. That's definitely very cool. But that's the kind of thing that, you watch the movie like a couple times getting ready for the show. And every time you see the White House blow up, it's a little less impressive than it was before that. And now at this point, I've seen it, 8 times or so. The most shocking thing of the season for me, the single most shocking thing, was on the That Thing You Do episode. Our guest was Dewey. And Dewey said that before agreeing to do the show and watching the movie for the show, he had never even heard of it before.
Yeah.
And that was like one of these moments where I realized how much the world has absolutely passed me by. Even in this year, 2025, I did not think it was possible that you wouldn't know, like, but I mean, I guess
the 122nd most popular movie of 1996.
It was the 44th seed, right? Like, I mean, yeah. So like,
but you're not walking down aisles of a video store anymore, and then there's not cable channels that are just constantly playing old movies. Like, so where are kids supposed to get culture and history?
Where are they supposed to know about
Roblox?
movies like?
I'll tell you right now, Newfound Glory album is when they cover movie themes, and they did That Thing You Do, and they did it correctly.
And the kids love Newfound Glory, Ryan?
I think they do.
One thing that did make me happy, though, was he was like, Steve Zahn did a great job in this movie. And I felt a lot of kinship with him in that moment. It's like, oh yeah, that's how we all felt at the time.
Even though he knows him from Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah, I believe he was talking about a different movie at the time.
Oh yeah. He was very excited about that. We're like, what is so good about Diary of the Wimpy Kid? And then, man, he answered that question. And by the time he was done, we had all agreed that was a bad idea.
When it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to all these brackets or battles, like the thing that it always ultimately comes down to, whether you know it or not, is the director and the director's control. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about tonight a ton of crazy people, Coen brothers, Danny Boyle, Lars von Trier. Tom Hanks is not the greatest director of all time, but as far as like, I'm going to put all of everything I've got into one movie, he sort of nails it. And it's going up against Roland Emmerich, who I'm going to say is bad at directing.
Yeah, this is a fluke, and it's still pretty bad.
Right, and like as far as like a director for hire, he's on that like Russo brothers level of like, go do what you do and make us money. But I can't tell you what a Roland Emmerich movie tells us other than this is cool. This looks cool when it blows up. And Emmerich heads, come at us, email us. But like if you know what his whole system is, that would be great. But like, I think Tom Hanks kind of nailed this movie.
Remember when in Spaceballs it cuts back to Dark Helmet and he's playing with action figures?
Yes.
ID4 is one of those movies where I feel like I'm watching the director play with action figures. I feel like I'm listening to a child explain what the backstory to their action figures is, and it's got that same logic of I thought that sounded cool in the moment, and so that's what we went with. And it's like after a while watching Independence Day, you're like, I'll just play with my own fucking action figures if that's what I've got. Like, I don't want to hear your take on it anymore.
And sometimes you are watching him play with his action figures because he's blowing up his little models.
Exactly. And I was surprised how little the models looked this time around. I don't know if CGI has like ruined me or something.
Well, there was that one time with the F-15s offline and then his thumb came in.
Yeah,
that was
bigger
than any plane.
And at first I was like, oh no, the alien's got a thumb. The alien's got a thumb.
They have thumb technology.
Remember Thumb Wars? If we're going on different Star Wars parodies.
Oh my gosh.
So much more than the Cable Guy or even Jerry Maguire, we can't do this season without Independence Day. But also get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, kind of left me a little cold in the end.
right.
At the end of the day.
And with
I
that,
didn't mean
Greg,
to
your
vote, Mike.
vote?
I'm sorry.
No, I love a vote. Greg?
I'm gonna go the same way.
All right, That Thing You Do moves on. A movie that talks about the 60s is one of our 1996
Our 44th
contenders.
that people don't know about it anymore.
Give one last award away and then shut it down for a week. And that is, you know what? We don't want to play favorites, except that's all we're doing for the next couple weeks.
The point of the show.
But if I had to give a Mootie award to Mike's favorite Mootie, it's Biggest Shithead.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's nominate 5 Mooties for best movie. Don't do that.
Comic.
Can you please tell the lovely listeners about Jerry Falwell?
Hold on. I can't, Mike, until we explain what Biggest Shithead is.
Oh,
Because there's
yeah,
a lot of
let's do
people
that.
out there.
It's obviously most villainous person,
No,
Ryan.
Greg, you're wrong.
It's gonna be the bad guy, like Bowser from
Stop being
Mario
Reddit,
Brothers.
Greg.
There are people from Burbank, where we're recording now, all the way to Australia
Yeah.
that don't know what Biggest Shithead is. So, of course, it's not most villainous.
Oh.
It's like, I don't even know how to describe it, Mike.
It's
is it most
Nightmare
villainous?
Blunt rotation? Is that is that in the lingo of the kids, the parlance of the day?
All right, Mike, give it to me one more time.
Jerry Falwell from The People versus Larry Flynn. Also in real life. Biggest shithead contender.
That might have helped his nomination here, because in this movie, and this is something that the movie does that like we didn't like, which is, oh, look at the Supreme Court, just a bunch of cool guys that you want to hang out with.
They'll save us.
And Jerry Falwell in this movie is just like I'm just trying to do my best, instead of one of the most evil, disgusting pieces of shit that's ever been born. Still, the way that he talks and is in this movie, and it's even like super shithead move to just always have that piece of hair in the back and that you just can't comb down. Like, he's just that.
You're from the
kind of
South. There's not a pomade you could grab, Jerry.
He's just a doofus.
Holier than thou, parasitic.
You know his life is disgusting and sinful, and yet he will strike hellfire, Hunchback, on anybody who crosses his path. I fucking hate this guy in the movie. Just talk about the movie.
And
He's dead, right?
His weird dumb son, yeah.
I'll talk about one who I think is a quintessential shithead, because he's compared to so many people in all of our movies. He's not a villain, but gosh darn it, is Val Goldman such a shithead from the kid from the Birdcage. The movie tries to be like, no, see how he was kind of he is unrepentant, irredeemable, and it's just I would rather hang out with everybody else on our Biggest Shithead list. I don't know if that's true than Val Goldman.
In like an incredibly true movie to me, a movie that speaks the truth. The falsest moment is having Val Goldman come up like the end of Wayne's World.
Yeah.
At the end and just be like, and the thing that I learned, shut the fuck up, Val. You have ruined so many people's months and lives.
He broke his dad's heart. Like that part where we talked about it on the show, but where Robin Williams says, Val, why don't you just not talk to me for a little bit? That's I'm so deeply disgusted by you.
And Val does like a little Macaulay Culkin high five, or like, yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't care. Don't talk to me. I'm getting my way.
And there's a moment where Val, has been getting his way basically the entire movie. People are like literally bending over backwards for him, and he's still like stomping his little feet.
A whiny shit about everything. Not grateful, not gracious.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, Mike. You just passed the doobie to Jerry Falwell, who's about to pass it to Val Goldman.
Yeah.
This
Nightmare Blunt
sucks.
rotation. Oh no, are you putting me in the Biggest Shithead list?
Yeah, I am.
Greg, you've already talked about this guy. It's Kittredge.
Okay, here's why I think Kittredge made it. Because sometimes what you mean by biggest shithead is like, this person fucking sucks. Sometimes what you mean is someone who is like an expert at being a shithead.
Yeah.
And Kittredge's point in this movie is to be an annoying obstacle all the time. And like, he clearly crafted, like the character clearly crafted within the universe of the movie, a like CIA character for himself and like a way he would talk and everything. So I think we kind of mean with him shithead, but kind of complimentary almost, because he seems to be like relishing it and enjoying it. Whereas like Jerry Falwell would be like, me, a shithead? Oh, my stars and garters. I've never heard something like this. Kittredge would be like, well, certainly that was something I had entertained as a possibility.
He gets off on Tom Cruise being upset.
Yes.
Although he's never seen Tom Cruise very upset. He you could see him getting smarmier.
Oh yeah.
And that's
He loves it, dude.
Classic shithead.
Yeah,
move.
he loves the game.
Yes. Our
We forgot
next
to also mention Ellis from Die Hard as the prototypical shithead.
Ellis he's what made this award, I think, come into
He's not the
existence.
terrorist that takes over the building, but he's the guy who talks to your wife too much.
I just don't need any emails from Australia now that we've covered all the bases of biggest shithead.
If you live on a farm, do not email us.
Another shithead who gets off on making Tom Cruise upset. Ryan, tell the world about Bob Sugar.
Okay,
Water.
I mean, the part that Jay Moore was born to play. In fact, I don't know if he ever played a different one, despite having different character names. And now he plays shithead of boyfriend to...
Married to the governor of the
governess.
Lakers.
Julie Buss?
Genie Bus.
He dreams of Genie. This is another Kittredge, Ethan Hunt moment of him sitting across the table from Jerry Maguire. Just Tom Cruise is dealing with a lot of shitheads in 96.
Oh, yeah.
Just getting off on the fact that he's watching this man's life be ruined.
This guy's literally a Sith.
Yeah.
It's like
he was his
as
mentee.
part of my training, I was going to betray you always, right? Like you realize that, right? You trained me to do this, and so now I'm doing it in your moment of weakness.
And I think it reminds us that it is true you can have too many yachts. It's true that money at a certain point you're so rich that it doesn't mean anything. It's power. It's belittling. It's putting people down that gets you off. And you can watch all of that in Bob Sugar's fucking face.
Our last nominee is Albert Nimzicki from Independence Day. This sniveling worm of a Secretary of Defense.
Oh my god.
He is never bold enough to
Still not the worst possible Secretary of Defense.
No, there's worse. He never texted anybody plans, but he will never make a decision. He will just whine loudly at the president that what he's doing is wrong while also making the dumbest fucking choices. Such a punchable dude.
And shout out to this guy. We give this award to characters, not actors, but shout out to this actor. If Robert Loggia was playing this part, we would have listened to him. If they cast Tommy Lee Jones at this part, we would have done whatever he said. But because it's this guy and that fucking Weasley face.
His thing is we got to nuke these aliens, but we don't see them deal with any other problems besides the aliens with this White House. But you get the sense that this is the guy that's we got a little trade snafu with France, and he's like, nuke him. We got to nuke him. I'm not so sure.
Send them the head of the Statue of Liberty. So, once again, your shitheads are Jerry Falwell, Val Goldman, Kittredge, Bob Sugar, and Albert Nimzicki. Ryan, your winner is?
It's Val Goldman from the Birdcage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never felt more confident about something on this show. I mean, watching the movie, it was around the time where Robin Williams says to him, I stopped hiding who I was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And Val still is like, but could ya? That's when I was like, dude, this is our biggest shithead. This is the winner right here.
That is all the time we have for this episode. Come back next week. There will be more battles. You're going to hear about Breaking the Waves, Ghost in the Shell, Trainspotting Swingers, more awards. Yeah, I know you're like, what's the best car of 1996? Come back next week. Until then, keep watching.
Best car definitely would have been high up on my best awards list.